Welcome to the Someday Readings channel. I am your host, the Someday Reader. And our goal here, our quest, is to build a better stack of books. And no stack of books should be without F. Paul Wilson's The Keep. Now, this was adapted into, very poorly, into a movie by Michael Mann in the 1980s. And the only good thing about the movie is the soundtrack by Tangerine Dream. I recommend avoiding the movie, but the soundtrack, yeah, it's worth a listen. But we're not going to talk about how disappointing the movie is. We are going to talk about how good the book is. And the book opens with SS Major Kempfer, who is riding out the last week of his assignment in Poland before he takes on his new command as the architect and commandant of a new labor/death camp in Ploiești, Romania. And his soon-to-be former CO has one last assignment for him, and that is to, since he's on his way to Romania anyway, to investigate a Wehrmacht post, an army post in the Dinu Pass, and find out what's going on there, because the commanding officer has requested permission to quit that post. And the reason behind wanting to quit the post is a rather oddly worded reason, and it is something is murdering my men. This strikes both men as being odd. And Wehrmann, his career is basically over because he had a run-in with Kempfer in Poland over the SS treatment of Polish, of basically human beings in general. And so it's left up to Kempfer to sort this problem out. So he says, all right, no problem. I'll sort it out while I'm on my way to Ploiești. Well, we go back to the day that Wehrmann and his troops take up residence in the keep. And Wehrmann is talking with the caretaker of the keep, who knows absolutely nothing about who built the keep, why it's there, or anything along those lines. All he knows is he gets paid to maintain the keep. That's it. That's all he knows. Now, the keep is rather odd. It has only 49 rooms. There's not 50. Why make it an odd number? That kind of thing. And there are all these crosses in the stones. And they're not a normal cross. They have a very high crossbar. And they don't look like any traditional cross. But they look like they're made out of gold and silver, which leads to one of the soldiers testing it out to see what it's made out of, and he's informed by Wehrmann, who's making a tour of inspection, that it's made out of brass and nickel. Don't waste your time. Well, Private Lutz is this treasure hunter, is his name. He doesn't fall for it. So that night, as he's on guard duty, he keeps digging around with his bayonet, testing, seeing, and he runs across one that is really gold and silver. And naturally, of course, he thinks he's hit the jackpot. But he can't get it out of the wall. He needs help. So he goes and corrals one of the other guards into helping him out. And between the two of them, they manage to start getting the cross out of the wall, but the stone that it's attached to starts coming out of the wall. And they keep tugging and tugging and tugging, and they get it out. And it opens up a shaft. And Lutz, who sees, the fabulous treasure of some long-forgotten count or whatever from Romania, grabs a flashlight and says, hold my feet. I'm going to go down and see what's down this hole, because there's probably a big payday down there. So Lutz goes into the shaft, squirms down into it, and then the whole world explodes. Well, Lutz's world explodes. And this, naturally, of course, the room that the room that they're in is showered with debris from the wall that they have pulled the stone block out of, just completely exploding and crumbling. And this causes a commotion. And during the commotion, they go down and they discover uh, Private Lutz's headless corpse laying in the room among the debris, and they discover his partner in a catatonic state, completely unable to speak. He does occasionally start screaming, which is, I guess that's better than, being completely out of it. But at that moment, when Private Lutz and his visions of, golden dreams come to a ignominious end, at that moment, a man awakens in a fishing village on the coast of Portugal. And this man awakens and realizes something's wrong at the keep. And he needs to get to Romania. So he digs up a money belt full of gold coins and a rectangular case, rather narrow and not very deep, and steals a fishing boat and starts making his way toward Romania. Well, over the course of the next few nights, regardless of whatever countermeasures Captain Vermon puts in place, whether it's 2 guys on patrol, 3 guys on patrol, or everybody on patrol, his men are dying or being killed at the rate of 1 per night, which leads him to send his very cryptic message, requesting that he be allowed to quit his post, that he be allowed to take his detachment someplace else. Something is murdering my men. And that is the message which brings Major Kempfer, who arrives on the scene and starts really Naziing up the place. And he takes several of the villagers that live in the tiny little village that's by the keep. He takes them hostage, brings them into the keep, locks them up into a makeshift prison cell, and tells Vermon, this is how it's done. This is how you deal with with partisans. You should have done this from the get-go, and all that kind of thing. And Vermon says, I don't think that this is partisans. I don't think there's partisan activity going on here. And naturally, of course, Kempfer scoffs at him. Well, they have the Romanians locked up in their little makeshift prison cell, and there's 2 of Major Kempfer's Einsatz commando thugs standing there on guard, and they're doing the typical thing that goons do. They're trying to figure out how to make people's lives miserable, for their own amusement. And they decide that they're going to haul out a couple of the peasants and force them to do some calisthenics until they pass out, because that's great fun, I guess. But before they have a chance to do that, the lights start to dim. And not so much dim as the light seems to retreat. And in the corridor leading towards their area. And eventually it just goes completely dark. And these 2 SS guys, they find themselves to be the objects of amusement for something very, very powerful and very, very well. Anyway, but now SS Major Kempfer, who is he's in his room. He's unaware of this fact at the moment. And he's laying down in his bunk, and he's got, visions of all the money that he's going to be able to steal from the future victims of his camp. rolling through his head when a banging starts on the door to his room, and he is naturally suspicious. He grabs his gun and says, "What's going on? Who's there? You know what? What?" And they just keep kicking at the door and pounding at the door until eventually the door caves in, and two SS men, two SS Einsatz guys, start marching into the room. Their nails on their boots, ringing on the stone of the of his little room there, and he's, "What do you want?" He's trying to figure out what's going on. What is going on? Speak, say something. And the two bodies continue walking, and till they get to the foot of his bed, and then they collapse on top of him. Naturally, of course, Major Kempfer he's a little taken aback by this, and he raises a commotion. And in the commotion, they discover that these are the two SS guards who were down guarding the prisoners, and they're both dead. Their throats have been ripped out, just like all the previous victims. And the question that Vermont has is, how did these two guys who were dead walk all the way up there to your room? And Kempfer is like, "Well, my guys are so loyal that, before they died, they wanted to report to me that they were going to die." So they go down and they investigate the peasants, and they find that none of the peasants have been injured at all. And on the wall outside the cell, written in blood, is some form of warning, some form of command, some form of threat. But it's written in a language that no one understands. And none of the peasants know what it says. The only literate person in the village doesn't know what it says, but he says, "I know somebody who does." And at that point, we're gonna leave this. You've got the mysterious stranger trying to make his way to the keep to see what's going on. You have the very odd mystery of who is killing the German soldiers in the village. Who is the scholar who knows what that phrase written on the wall in blood might mean and what answers it might have to solve the mystery. And if you want to find all of that out, you're going to have to buy the book and read it. And this is a definite recommend. And this should, I'm going to say that this should go up toward the top of that stack of books. And with that, I'm going to say, have a better one. Please like, share, and subscribe and comment. And that's it.